Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dog Co Secrets podcast. My name is Michelle Kline. I am your host and also the founder of Dog Co Launch, where pet care companies come to grow and scale. Today's episode, I'm really excited about. I have my friend Jessica Berry on the call with me. Friend and client, Jessica and I have worked together for, maybe 2 years now, going on 2 years. She is part of my 7-figure Dog Co group, which is a group of companies that are either at or ascending to 7 figures in the pet care industry. And she was kind enough to come on the podcast today to let me ask her some questions and hopefully to give you, as the listener, insight into just takeaways you can have as you are scaling your business yourself. So, Jess, thanks for being on the call.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
So I'm obviously very familiar with you and your company at this point, but I'd love if you could kind of open that window for people listening. Who are you? What's your business? And how did it get to where we're having this conversation?
Sure. So I never thought I'd be where I am right now, but I grew up my whole life. I wanted to be a vet. Had like a little detour where I was a horse girl and thought I wanted a horse farm. Still do, but wanted to be a vet. And that was my plan. I went to the University of Connecticut to do my pre-vet before vet school. But when I was in college, my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and obviously was not in my plans. And she ended up passing away when I was a senior. And that was just a lot, I guess. And when she passed, I was 21, my sister was 18, and my brother was 8. There's no vet schools in Connecticut. So I was like, okay, moving again feels like a lot right now. And I don't want to leave my siblings. So goodbye plan. I decided to come back home when I graduated. I got my bachelor's in animal science and I got a job at a vet diagnostic company where we manufactured blood tests and things for dogs and cats and humans. It was fine. It was not my passion. I wanted to be more hands-on with animals and feel like I was making more of a difference. So I ended up connecting with a woman named Tammy who had a dog walking pet sitting business. And she was like, hey, you'd be great for this. And I was like, game on. So I started walking dogs before at work, after work, during my lunch break. My boss loved it. I did that for a little while. I ended up moving a little bit out of our service area. I said, hey, what do you think if I open like a sister company and we refer back and forth? She said, sure, let's do it. We did that, and that's how I created my first business, which is called RCO Pet Care. RCO is my dog, Rocco's name with a couple of letters chopped. I didn't think it was going anywhere. This is just what I did on my lunch break, I swear. Eventually, Tammy was going to move out of state. She talked about managing from afar, but we ended up I kind of purchased her client list, which did help us grow a little bit. Then we hit COVID, so it all went away anyway. But that is how RCO started. I ended up quitting my full-time job at the chemistry lab in 2021, which is finally post-COVID. We started to see some growth again. That was terrifying. My only regret is I didn't do it sooner. It was scary. So if you're in that boat, I feel you. It can work out. And at that point, I had a team of, I'm going to say between 5 and 10 people. That's a guess. But once I was full-time in the business, I had my team ready to really handle things. I found I had more free time and I don't know what to do with free time. So I said, let's fill it. I went through the Karen Pryor Academy for dog training, which was incredible. That was in I'm going to say 2022 maybe. But that led me to open Where Set Happens, which is like a branch of the pet care company where we have a facility where we do group classes and I do behavior mod like aggression, lots for reactivity, prepping dogs for babies, like for expecting families. But RCO Pet Care still goes strong. I'm more out of the day-to-day on that. And Where It Happens, we just had our second birthday, so to speak. So I'm still kind of more in the weeds on that. But I mean, I love dog walking and pet sitting. I love the behavior side, both on the training and being able to apply that to our dog walking clients, even like our cat clients, like learning theory is learning theory. So it's been a really cool addition.
So let me get this straight, just like recap. In under 7 years, you created a business that let you quit your full-time job, that survived a global pandemic, that you have been able to get to the place where you run half of it more or less absentee owner. The other half, you have a facility, like an actual facility, where you've picked up some bomb ass certifications on the way, honed skills, and you are now ascending to seven figures as a company. Did I capture all of this badassery
You make
correctly?
it sound more badass than I do, but yes, I guess so.
Can I tell you, and I've never shared this before, I don't think. So, something that y'all will hear on this episode, one of the things that I love the most about Jessica is the way that she approaches investing herself and in her own education. This is so funny out loud. We were texting about this morning. Went to Vegas together over the summer to go to a workshop with Alex Hermosi. So we can deconstruct Vegas and all the fun that we had there, which made it sound way cooler than it was. We definitely were like 8 p.m. Good night.
We were exhausted. There was no what happened in Vegas stays in Vegas type of thing.
There wasn't. We would go out for a single drink and then we went to bed.
Good night. Yep.
Yeah, good night. I will see you tomorrow. But Jessica just invests in herself. Like, you are such a natural entrepreneur. I really can't imagine you working for somebody else. And not because I've perceived you to have this like deep rebellious streak where it's like I could never answer to authority, but more so in like you're just very skilled at entrepreneurship. I love the way you think, and I love the way that you tackle problems so methodically. You are a badass. I think you're a badass.
I mean, we're all dogco badasses, so.
There we go. So I know when we kind of come up to the high level of a 7-year arc, we hit the highlights. It sounds awesome in hindsight, and it is awesome. But I'd love to hear maybe points in your journey where you have been really stuck, you've overcome certain bottlenecks, and how you approach those.
Definitely. And there have been a lot. It's so funny because people will be like, wow, you're so impressive. Like, how do you have it all together? I'm like, are you talking to me? Because the business is awesome. I love it. But I joke that like I'm too soft for it. So as soon as something happens, like when you said the way I approach problems, like this is a true story. One time I got on a coaching call with Michelle and I was like, I need you to punch me in the face. And she was like, I'm not going to do that. But sometimes, like, I think my biggest bottleneck is me. And it's when I get in my head and get in, I guess, the emotions of it. I feel like a lot of my bottlenecks come from setting boundaries, initially with clients, as we've grown with employees. And when I say boundaries, I don't mean like discipline necessarily. I mean just helping people know like what their role is, what my role is, setting expectations for even myself as a leader. That's been tough because, I always say like, hold on, let me panic for a second. So when something happens, I have to like take 5 minutes to be like, oh gosh, the world's on fire. And it's like, okay, let's get into it. Whether that's, I mean, COVID was a little bit different, but whether it's COVID, something I need to talk to an employee about, whether it's a client that I have to let them know that like their dog might not be the right fit for our day school program, which is very natural and not every dog is meant for it, but there's emotion attached to pets, obviously. So that was a little rambly way to say I think the bottlenecks I hit are often myself holding myself back or myself, I guess it's just myself holding myself back. I guess that's it in almost every way.
So I think if every entrepreneur was very honest with themselves, I think that is the bottleneck for entrepreneurs. I was listening to our good friend Alex, his podcast yesterday, and he was talking about how entrepreneurship is the best vehicle he has found for self-growth and self-improvement because you can't hide. Like, the market doesn't let you hide. It holds this really close mirror to who you are, and like us getting in the way of ourselves. I think that is really honest to the core bottleneck that I would say everybody I work with struggles with. And you're not wrong. You are the only client that I have ever gotten on a call with that opened the call with the no hello. Just to give everyone full context, there was no hello. There was no like, hi, I'm struggling today. It was just the Zoom comes on. I'm going to need you to punch me directly in the face. But I will say, even that was methodical to an extent because you thought about what you needed.
Mhm. Yeah,
It
that's
was not
true.
something I would ever do, but you thought about what you needed. So,
I think that's a good example, though, even, like, I remember that call very distinctly. It was before we had our little we just got an additional office space, so I was in this crazy loud coffee shop, and I was beating myself up because it was, like, mid-January, and we weren't hitting this arbitrary revenue goal that I made up, but I was beating myself up over. And from that conversation, we came up with the idea because, again, I'm bottlenecking myself. I'm making myself crazy and focusing on things that don't need the energy right now. And I could be doing 12 other things. But we came up with the idea of on the first of the month, recording how much revenue is booked. We use time to pet. So if I run the report, it says, I'm just gonna make up really easy numbers. Let's say it's $1,000. And then at the end of the month, if it's 2,000, that's what we ended up with. I was like, okay, so I can expect about 50% of the business or 50% of our bookings are in by the first.
mhm.
It turns out our number is about 70%, and that's pretty accurate. But all of that being said is I got all up in my head about this rule. I worked with Michelle and we came up with this system. And now, I mean, do I still get in my head about numbers sometimes? Yes. Did I do it this month? Yes. Was it necessary? No, we're totally good. But it has helped immensely.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I've always enjoyed about our coaching and our conversations is you are always down to explore a data-driven solution with me, even if the emotion is fueling the need, because like business and emotion go hand in hand. Like I think you asked me the other day, what does it look like when you get overwhelmed? And I said, I lay directly on the floor. Just like if you walk into my office and I am laying on the floor, I have not passed out. I just need a minute.
yep.
That's what overwhelm looks like to me sometimes. So business and overwhelm, business and emotion hand in hand. You are always really good about following that thread of just how could we use data or find data strategically to help us either validate or invalidate the emotion related to it. Also, acknowledging that a lot of the emotion relative to the business can be self imposed. I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think the fact that honestly that you set aggressive targets, my perception is that's a big reason you have grown as quickly as you do because you have held like a really high bar for growth in the company and you track things so clearly. But I appreciate the relationship you have to data and to emotion and your follow through on the data because I really think that serves you well.
Yeah, I'm very much a data person. Like whether it comes to business, like even just I'm a big reader. Even my Goodreads challenge, my goal is 100 this year. Books, we're gonna hit it. Like just seeing things, graph, I'm all about it. And I think that's one of the reasons that I've enjoyed working with you so much is because you are very much in the data. I feel like there are some coaches that are, some coaches that are less so, but the data is what really clicks for me because I can look at it and be like, okay. And I think one thing I was thinking about ahead of the podcast was one thing I think I've learned from you is that it's okay to try things. It's okay to test things. And when you do, you have to let the data run so we can see what's going to happen. But it doesn't mean that the business is going to go up in flames because we tried something. I went off on a little bit of a tangent, but it all comes back to that data. It is super important to me on a personal level, but also definitely a business level.
So you brought up coaching, and I'm going to give my disclaimer to the audience that I always give when I have a client of mine on is that Jessica has not been primed to say anything about Dogco. She has actually been very directly asked to speak to any relevant experience authentically that she has had with coaching. And I'd love to just open this up to the way you approach coaching, the way you make educational investments and how you think
Hmm.
about that. And because I really believe that serves you. One of the things that you do that I think is so wise, you oftentimes will have a couple coaches you're working with at once, which
Hmm.
I think can make such a well-rounded educational experience
Hmm.
and really inform just like different facets of thought. Like, that may be less feasible for some companies in certain seasons financially. It's not necessarily,
Hmm.
I'm saying that is the way to do it, but I've loved seeing how you approach it. So, what are your thoughts on coaching and investing in you as the owner?
Definitely. So I'm a nerd. There is no doubt about that. So, if there's some certification, like especially in the dog training world I can get, I'm like, game on, let's go. There's a business book that looks even remotely interesting, I will read it. So I'm big on growth and big on self-improvement and learning. So I didn't mean to end up with two coaches, but it happened. And it wasn't something I could have done earlier in my journey, I guess. So, like you said, if it's not feasible right now, totally normal. But that's been really interesting because I think, like, whereas Dogco, like Michelle and Dogco is in the industry, I feel like I can run ideas about marketing. And I've learned a lot about marketing from Michelle and from, the presentations. I kind of have a second coach who is more, I almost want to say like on the HR side of things. That's not to say that
Mm.
I haven't come to Michelle with things because I have, but Michelle helps me learn how to track data, take risks or whatever. I also have someone holding me accountable for the things that I really struggle with and I don't enjoy doing. If someone makes a mistake, like having to have a conversation about that or, what to do if someone's not the right fit. So it's been a really nice combo because I can also then run like our day school pricing by both of them, or run an HR thing by both of them. I mean, everyone has a slightly different personality, so it's really
Mhm.
interesting to like hear one perspective versus the other. I will say sometimes, and I think Alex Hermosi said this, when you have a mentor, I want to make sure I don't butcher this, but you should pick like one person. Like if you listen to 100 people, you're going to get so much advice that you're not going to know what to do.
Mm.
If you ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different opinions. But I really think if you find the right core group of people, whether that's one coach or two or Chat GPT, I don't know. Love me some Chad. It feels like you're not alone. And I think that's actually what I realized this year is that I have people behind me who can, one, bring me down, not bring me down, but talk me down when, I'm really heightened, that I trust and admire, and they can help me be like, no, no, you can do this. This is what we're going to do, and then
Mm.
shove me to do it because there are like hiring an executive assistant has been great. I would not have done that if it wasn't for like Michelle and my other coach to be like, nope, you are posting a job ad. This is going to be good for you. And sure enough, it's been awesome. So,
You and I approach this really similarly. I call it forming my board of advisors.
mhm,
And not everybody
exactly.
on my board knows they're on my board, but it's just like some key people that have, like, so for example, Alex Ramosi is on my board of advisors, but I have like probably five or six either direct coaching relationships for myself personally, or just people that I see as mentors or like with these key areas. Like my version of your other coach is someone I worked with for years. He was a speaker at the Dog Co Summit. I really learned how to hold staff accountability from him. That doesn't come as naturally. Like, I'm probably not going to go workshop an in depth marketing strategy with him. If I have a big people issue, he is my first call still. So I love that. I think that is a really wise way to approach it.
And that's not to say that like I wouldn't workshop like marketing with one person or I wouldn't workshop something with you. It's just, I think, like you said, like having that board,
Mhm.
it's, I think now that I haven't thought about this until now, but if I'm like, hey, Michelle, I need help with this thing versus I need help with this laundry list of things. I, one, don't want you to be like, wow, that's a really long text. That's a lot. But two, we can really focus on something without worrying about, the other 12 things on my list. And like you said, there's people that are like on my board that don't know it. So Alex Ramosi and his podcast are one. And ever since we went to that workshop, whenever he or Layla talk about like a framework, I'm like, we are taking notes. We are going to use this. But even Jamie Troll, her book came out. I was not told to say this, but it is really, really good. So
It is.
genuine plug. Once I got to the profit levers, I'm actually like Jamie has no idea that I'm bringing her into my profit strat. Well, I'm sure that's her goal, but she doesn't personally know that. But I'm literally writing a playbook of like, if this is happening, I'm going to do this. If this is happening, I'm
Mm.
going to do this. If I have a financial question, like I might not even come to one of my live coaches right away. Like I might be like, okay, what did I learn from X person? Let's go back and see, what I took from that.
So, I want to share an area that you've really changed some things for me in processes that I do. Jess, out of everyone that I know, takes the time to distill thoughts into frameworks and to actually write them down so that she can reference them later. And you and I talked about this in Vegas. I remember very distinctly because it was like 110 degrees and we were in an Uber. And I was having this moment where I was like, I feel like I'm going to throw up because I'm getting really car sick. And what she's saying is so interesting that it's actually distracting me enough. I don't know if I told you that. I couldn't talk about it in the
No,
moment.
but
I was
that would
like,
help, I guess.
I'll vomit all over the back of this man's car. Because we were talking about that book, The Second Brain, writing is, what's it called?
Yes. I think it's like building a second brain or something like that.
Yeah, and you were sharing about how that was a big focus area for you was to actually take the time to write things out into frameworks and principles. And that's a conversation, I don't think I've shared this with you, that mentally I come back to a lot because I really saw a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah, I do. I think you did because we were talking about that and like I use Evernote to like kind of capture that.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's something I've started this year too. This has been a year of growth in like so many different ways. But I find that's really, really helpful. Like even I'm reading, again, I'm always reading, but I'm reading a book. It's called, I think it's called We Can Do Hard Things or something. But there's just like a
Mm,
lot of like short passages. And when I'm reading, like if I'm reading a business book, I'll typically take notes. But here I'll take a picture of the passage and I'll throw it into Evernote and tag it with something. So if I'm like, wow, I'm really worried about blah, 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 or what should I do in this situation, I can pull up the things that I've kind of learned. Because there's so much content. I love to consume content because that's just the world, I guess. Like I'm always listening to a podcast or reading or whatever. But I found that I was ingesting so much and not
mm,
doing much with it. So yeah, that has been a big thing for me is whether it's working with Michelle, like a cohort like
hmm
presentation teaching, or it's me listening to a podcast in the car and I'm like, Siri, take a note and I'm telling her, this framework. That's been awesome.
I love it. So I imagine there's somebody listening to this right now who, one, is like, I'm learning a lot about Michelle and Jessica personally and
Surprise.
Michelle's car habits. But there's probably somebody listening that I imagine wants to invest more in themselves, in their skills, in their knowledge, and struggle with the financial component of that. Not even necessarily
Hmm.
like the true number of it, though, of course, that's a component too. But even just the idea of leveraging resources into something without a guaranteed return.
Hmm.
I was wondering if you'd be able, comfortable, willing to speak to that and not even necessarily through the lens of Dogco. Like,
Hmm.
it is a paid service, but through the lens of like how you approach financial investment when it comes to education and how you think about it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a tough question because like I said, I'm very data driven. So, for example, if I were to count calories, if we go to like a restaurant and I don't know exactly how many grams of protein, carbs, and fat are in something, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is the point? Like I just kind of give up. I swear I ask this question once a month about like figuring out ROI. I'm like, okay, well, they say they found us on Facebook, Facebook group, Facebook ad, like I can get crazy about the little details when you hire a coach, whether that's a dog co or you go to a workshop or something, it's really hard to find that ROI
hmm
because it's ideally I'm going to learn and that's going to affect so many things.
hmm
But,
You
and
mean
like I
it's
said,
hard to find the measurable ROI?
yeah, measurable ROI.
Got
Like,
it.
okay, like working with Michelle has brought up my revenue X percent. Like, I don't even know how I'd begin to figure that out. Like I said, this year has been a big year of growth for me. And I think that's where I see a lot of the ROI. I had a difficult conversation with a team member on this past Thursday. This keeps happening, not difficult conversations, but where I'm talking to someone or I'm explaining something and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, listen to me." Like I'm doing so well because I've just learned so much. And that's not something that me being able to steer a conversation that, isn't so fun, isn't something that could be like, that was worth X amount of dollars. But just the relief, and I don't know if pride is the right word, but just the like, that was pretty cool. Like, look at like watching yourself grow and as a person and a business leader. I think, ROI financially is important, but also investing on yourself
Mm.
and taking a risk on yourself to see that ROI, I guess, because without learning, how are you going to get there? I feel like I would definitely still be a much smaller business, still stuck in the same old.
I feel like working with a coach myself, I think this is true now too. It just feels a little bit more normed to me since I've invested so much in coaching personally. It made me take myself more seriously as a business owner because of how seriously someone was taking me.
Agreed.
And that to me, like, yes, financial growth, yes, like specific skills, yes, those cool moments. But I think just like stepping into this is my identity, and I deserve is kind of a loaded word, but I am going to take up space as an entrepreneur, and I am going to like confidently move into this. I will confidently hire people. I will create
Right.
my own little world and then tell people how to operate within it. That for me was the biggest outcome, I think, of
Yeah.
coaching.
No, I agree. And then as you were saying that too, like I find like through coaching, especially like not through all coaching, but like through Dog Co, you're not only working with Michelle, but you're working with a group of typically like-minded people or people working towards the same kind of goal. Dog Co Summit this year, and I go to the Karen Pryor Clicker Expo every year. When I leave those things, I'm fired up. So, whether it's like a really good one-on-one with a coach directly, or it's the people that coach connects me with or encourages me to, like the workshop we went to in Vegas. I think I texted Michelle and said, "Have you ever thought about going?" And she said, "Yeah, let's go." And I was like too stunned to speak. So the next day she's like, "You good?" And I said, "All right, let's go." I left that fired up, and I'm going back in
Yeah.
January actually. That's not something that I would have done.
I remember exactly right where I was when you texted me that. So, and maybe we'll end on this story because if you have chaotic friends, I think that's really the moral of this episode. Lean into them.
Yes.
Jessica texted me and said, I've been kind of kicking around going to the Hermosi workshop. And she had the really unfortunate timing of I had literally just looked into that the morning of. So I immediately texted her back and said, great, here are the dates I can go. I'll go ahead and buy my ticket. And I could tell she was like, oh God, this was so theoretical until this
Yep.
exact moment. And then we did the dang thing, and it was really inspiring. And it was so cool for me to be there with you, both through the lens of like myself learning and through the lens getting to see you learn and helping. I don't even know how helpful it was, but like helping kind of with some of the strategy you were taking away on
Mhm.
the pet care business side while I was taking things for Dog Co. Like that was a very cool moment for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because we were definitely kind of like bouncing things off. It's really, really cool to know that you have a coach that is learning, like that, didn't have a business X number of years ago. I mean, you did, but you are totally investing in yourself. And I think that shows, especially someone that's like, yeah, let's go to Vegas. Sure. And then all of a sudden I'm going to Vegas. Like, all right, well, thanks, Michelle.
Happy to
That
help,
was one
here
way
to
to
serve.
invest in myself.
I love it. Well, thank you. I know we took kind of a deeper thread on this than there's so much we could have talked about. Like there's so much about like your story and your experience and what you've done. And I'm going to trust the process that we got where we needed to go and that this helped someone really kind of thinking about how do they take themselves more seriously as a business owner, and just how do they think about how they line up this board of advisors and who's on it and who gets to be that trusted voice so that they do have this kind of me recapping my key takeaways. They do have these inputs that inform their thinking and push them and encourage them, which is so stinking important when you're a business owner, especially. But they don't have this total chaos of 100 voices and no clarity, no direction. Like they've figured out kind of that balance. And I trust that this helps somebody do that today.
Awesome. That's perfect.
Any final takeaways you want me to end on?
No, I think like I said, I think this we like deep dived into growth and learning and things, but I know that me from even a year ago would have loved to hear this. So I'm hopeful that whether it's buying a book to read a business book or like pulling the trigger on a bigger investment, like you can do it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, you can. Okay. Thanks so much. All right, everybody. We will catch you soon.